There's a specific kind of silence that isn't really silence at all. It's louder than most conversations I've ever had. I learned that from a woman named Priya, and I still think about her more than I probably should. I worked in an office that sold industrial packaging equipment, which is about as unglamorous as it sounds. Priya sat 2 desks away from me for almost 3 years. We weren't close friends, but we had that easy office rhythm: coffee runs, shared eye rolls during meetings, the occasional lunch when neither of us felt like eating alone. I liked her. I assumed she liked me too. That assumption turned out to matter more than I realized at the time. I've always considered myself decent at reading people. Not in some special, gifted way, just observant. I notice tone shifts. I notice when someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. I thought that made me perceptive. Looking back, I think it mostly made me confident in the wrong way, because noticing something and understanding it are 2 very different skills, and I hadn't learned that yet. It started on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. Priya walked past my desk without her usual morning and went straight to her computer. I told myself it was nothing. People have off days. But then it happened again on Wednesday. And Thursday, when I asked if she wanted to grab lunch, she said she had a lot going on and didn't look up from her screen. I remember sitting there afterward, replaying the last few weeks in my head like I was searching for evidence. Had I said something wrong? Was there a joke that landed badly? I couldn't find anything, which somehow made it worse. When you can't locate the reason for someone's distance, your mind doesn't stay empty. It fills in the blank itself, usually with the worst possible explanation. By the following week, I had built an entire narrative. I decided Priya was annoyed with me, maybe even resentful. I thought back to a project a few months earlier where I'd gotten credit for an idea that was partly hers. At the time she'd seemed fine with it. Now I wasn't so sure. I started to believe that fine had just been her being polite, and that this silence was the real answer, delayed. What's strange is how quickly I adjusted my own behavior around a story I had written entirely in my head. I stopped stopping by her desk. I kept my messages short and professional. If she was going to pull away, I told myself, I wasn't going to chase it. There's a certain pride in that kind of withdrawal. You tell yourself you're protecting your dignity, when really you're just protecting yourself from finding out you might be wrong. 3 weeks went by like that. 2 people who used to talk every day now exchanged maybe a sentence, and always about work. I noticed the other people in the office had picked up on it too, in that quiet way offices do, where nobody says anything but everyone adjusts their seating slightly, avoids putting the 2 of you on the same call. I remember thinking, more than once, that I should just ask her directly what was going on. And I remember, just as clearly, deciding not to. Some part of me didn't want confirmation. As long as I didn't ask, I could still tell myself it might not be about me at all. Asking felt like opening a door I wasn't sure I wanted to walk through. Then, on a Friday afternoon, I found a jacket on the back of my chair that wasn't mine. It was Priya's. I recognized it instantly, a gray one she wore almost every day that winter. She must have hung it there by mistake on her way to a meeting. I picked it up to bring it over to her desk, and that's when her phone, sitting nearby, lit up with a text preview. I wasn't trying to read it. It was just there, the way notifications are. But I saw enough, a name I didn't recognize, something about a follow-up appointment, a doctor's office. I put the phone down immediately and told myself it wasn't my business. But something about it stayed with me for the rest of the day, a small crack in the story I'd built. That evening, waiting for the elevator, it was just the 2 of us. The silence between us felt different than usual, not cold, just heavy, like there was something underneath it neither of us had said out loud. Almost without deciding to, I asked her if everything was okay. Not accusingly. Just quietly. She looked at me for a second like she was deciding whether to actually answer. Then she said her mother had been diagnosed with something serious a few weeks earlier, and she'd been going back and forth to appointments before and after work, trying to keep it together enough to function during the day. She said she hadn't told anyone at the office because she didn't want people treating her differently, or asking questions she didn't have answers to yet. I don't think I said much in response. I remember just standing there, feeling something shift in my chest, a kind of quiet embarrassment that had nothing to do with looking foolish in front of her and everything to do with what I'd assumed. For 3 weeks, I had turned her exhaustion and distraction into a verdict about me. I had made her silence about my ego, when it had never been about me at all. What stayed with me afterward wasn't just guilt, though there was some of that. It was the realization of how confidently I had misread her, and how little that confidence had to do with actual understanding. I had noticed the signs, the shorter answers, the missed hellos, the declined lunches, and I had read them correctly as signals of distance. But I had gotten the meaning of them completely wrong, because I filled in the explanation with a story that centered me, instead of considering the far more likely one that had nothing to do with me at all. In the weeks that followed, things between us slowly went back to something like normal, though not exactly the same. She started stopping by my desk again, sometimes just to vent for a few minutes about hospital paperwork or insurance calls. I found myself listening differently than I used to, less focused on how to respond, more focused on just being there. I stopped needing every silence to mean something about me. I started noticing it in other places too, once I started paying attention. A friend who canceled plans twice in a row wasn't necessarily losing interest in the friendship, he was quietly dealing with a breakup he hadn't mentioned yet. A coworker who snapped at me in a meeting wasn't upset with me specifically, he'd been up most of the night with a sick kid. None of these things were really about me, even though my instinct, every time, was to make them about me first and consider anything else second. I think that's the trap. When someone pulls away, or goes quiet, or seems different, our minds don't default to curiosity. They default to self-reference. We ask, "What did I do?" before we ask, "What might they be going through?" It's not because we're selfish people, it's because our own perspective is the only one we have full access to, so it's the easiest one to reach for. Understanding someone else's silence requires setting that instinct aside, at least long enough to consider that their behavior might have very little to do with us at all. I don't think Priya's silence was ever hard to notice. The signs were all there, clear as anything, the shorter sentences, the avoided eye contact, the sudden unavailability. What I lacked wasn't observation. It was the willingness to ask, instead of assume. Reading people accurately, I've come to think, isn't really about picking up on subtle cues. Anyone can notice a change in tone or behavior. The real skill is resisting the urge to write the story yourself, and staying curious enough to let the other person tell you what's actually true. I still think about that elevator conversation sometimes, mostly because of how easily it almost didn't happen. If I hadn't seen that jacket, if her phone hadn't lit up at that exact moment, I might have let the distance between us calcify into something permanent, all built on a version of events that existed only in my head. It makes me wonder how many other misunderstandings in my life never got the chance to correct themselves, how many people I quietly decided things about, who were simply carrying something I never thought to ask about. I don't have a tidy answer for how to always get this right. I still catch myself sometimes, filling in someone's silence with a story about myself before I've considered any other possibility. But I try to pause now, just for a second, before deciding what someone's distance means. I ask myself whether I actually know, or whether I've just decided. Because most of the time, the truth isn't hidden. It's just waiting for someone to ask. What would change if, the next time someone went quiet around you, your first thought wasn't, "What did I do?" but, "I wonder what they're carrying."